Good evening, thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. Earnings season, and it's big profits for big tech. General Motors halts production at 4 factories. It's over a shortage of computer chips. President Biden says the next aid package must include $1,400 checks. It's even after a new study questioned the economic benefits. And Apple want to help you use your face to unlock your phone even when you're wearing a mask. Google's parent company Alphabet's share price hit a record high today after blowout fourth quarter results. Its Google and YouTube ad businesses performed particularly well. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
Google's advertising empire gained new ground for the fourth quarter. YouTube video services grew, showing it's a major market magnet. And other companies poured more into promotions aimed at cooped-up consumers with money to spend. As usual, Google's parent company Alphabet earned most of its revenue from Google's ad network. Alphabet earned $15.2 billion in net profit from October to December, beating Wall Street expectations. It also says Google's computer servers and other equipment is lasting longer than expected. That could boost its operating results by as much as $2 billion this year. The news drove Alphabet's stock price up over 7% in extended trading Tuesday. Google's fourth quarter ad revenue increased 22% year over year. The increase comes after Google's ad revenue fell 8% in the second quarter last year. It was the first time it went down since Google went public in 2004. As for YouTube, its ad revenue rose 46% from the previous year. Things are expected to get even better for Google from here. One financial services firm projects that spending on digital ads will increase 15% this year. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Apple's revenue was up 21% to a record $111 billion for the quarter ending December 26th as well. Those results announced last week. Now the company's working on how you can unlock your iPhone, even with your face mask on. It'll save you having to remove your mask to unlock your iPhone, but you'll need to have an Apple Watch to use the new feature. It lets your iPhone communicate with a synced watch when the phone is raised to use Face ID. Then the iPhone will automatically unlock and the Apple Watch will vibrate. The feature will likely roll out soon, but if you don't have an Apple Watch, I'm afraid you'll just have to keep entering your passcode. It's called first world problems. And Amazon likewise had a super fourth quarter. It saw its largest quarter by revenue ever, with $125 billion in sales. It never broke the $100 billion mark before. Earnings per share were $14 versus just $7 forecast. So was this the perfect time for Jeff Bezos to step down? The current CEO of Amazon Web Services, Andy Jassy, will take over. I talked to Steve Anderson about the decision. He's written a number of books about Bezos and Amazon. Asked him if this was just good timing for Bezos to do what he always had planned to.
I think it certainly could be. You know, Amazon announced this week in their fourth quarter earnings call, $126 billion in revenue, largest ever, right, for them, certainly, and really driven by the pandemic. So I think timing may have been there, and they would have known this, a couple of months ago, actually, where they thought it was going to be. But I do think the planning for this started at least 5 years ago, and probably maybe 6 or 7. Because one thing we certainly know about Bezos is he is a long-term thinker, and he really does like to think, years in advance and plan and work toward a goal.
And oftentimes we see these high-profile leaders leaving. The stock price of the company will take a hit, shareholders maybe panic a little bit, but I believe Amazon is up even today.
Yeah.
So is there something Bezos did here?
Well, I think a couple things. When I said, 5 years ago it started the planning, that's when actually Andy Jassy was named CEO of Amazon Web Services, and Jeff Wilke was named CEO of what they called worldwide consumer. So that's, he was over all of the website, everything having to do with the retail consumer. And so there was precedent, or at least planning, to even think about having other CEOs of components or pieces of Amazon. Now, Jeff Wilke announced last fall that he was stepping aside, and Dave Clark, who's been part of that retail environment, now has stepped into that CEO position. So I think it's not unprecedented for them to do that, but it certainly is interesting. And for me, looking at, okay, the planning that went into that and the intentionality of knowing they wanted a succession plan, how are we going to go about doing it? And again, I think you may be right. The timing now, after the pandemic, could be just a good time to make that transition.
And you've covered, of course, Bezos's various letters to his shareholders, or his share owners, as he likes to call them. What do you think he'll be saying to them now?
Well, I'm very interested in the 2020 letter, which will come out in April, typically around April of the following year. Obviously, the pandemic and lots of stuff around that. And I actually wonder if maybe more of the impetus to make this change now had to do with him needing to step back into that CEO role for day-to-day activities. He said in a letter to employees in March of last year, at the early part of the pandemic, that he was focusing all of his time on Amazon.com and making sure that was functioning to the best of its ability. Certainly early on, there were some issues around delivery and things like that. I also wonder if his testimony before the Congress didn't sit well with him, and he maybe didn't like that type of publicity or being upfront. And now that will become Andy Jassy's responsibility to handle that. And there's certainly some significant issues that Jassy will be facing with Amazon in the next few years.
I think those appearances before the Congress is one responsibility I think he won't miss somehow.
I suspect that's the case. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And actually, because I did in my book, The Bezos Letters, I did a deep dive in all of his share owner letters. Now I'm going to be interested, okay, what happens in 2021? Will that be still Bezos, or will it be Jassy, or, as the CEO? So I certainly will be watching that with interest.
Oh, you're right. I never thought of that. You could be right. Steve, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But not all is well in tech. Music streaming platform Spotify forecasts its revenue and paid subscribers will miss Wall Street estimates this quarter. Leadership there not sure how long the high demand it's seen during the pandemic will actually last. Conway G. Gittins reports.
Shares of Spotify took a fall Wednesday as the company cast doubt on how much longer it will be able to benefit from a spike in usage caused by people stuck inside during a global health crisis. The streaming music and podcast company has seen a sharp rise in paid subscribers at a time when people can't go out and socialize. Monthly active users rose to 345 million in the fourth quarter, leading to better than expected sales numbers. Premium subscribers, who account for most of that gain, jumped 24% during the last 3 months of 2020. But Spotify expressed concern that it may not be able to keep on signing up new subscribers at that pace, forecasting sales and paid subscriber numbers for the current quarter that were below analyst projections. Spotify is counting on new paying subscribers to help offset the cost of its big expansion into podcasts. It has spent hundreds of billions of dollars to buy podcast companies and to snag some big names, including Michelle Obama and Prince Harry and Meghan.
General Motors will cut production at 4 assembly plants next week. It's just the latest automaker hit by the global chip shortage. 3 GM plants will cut production completely, and one plant in South Korea will go down to half capacity for the week. The company isn't saying how much volume it will lose or which supplier has affected the chip shortage. It says it's just focused on keeping production running at plants building the highest profit vehicles. One forecaster thinks 10,000 vehicles won't get produced next week because of the shortages. And Gamestop shares today stopped the rout, held pretty steady around $92 after the big losses yesterday. Online platforms lifting the restrictions recently, but the fallout may be just beginning. The new Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is calling a meeting of top regulators to discuss the market frenzy driven by all that retail trading in GameStop, AMC, and the others. Gloria Tsao reports.
The Treasury said Tuesday Yellen will meet with the heads of major U.S. regulators, including the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Reserve. It's her first public effort to address the market ruckus after traders on the Wall Street Bets Reddit forum took on the big hedge funds of Wall Street. It sent shares of video game retailer GameStop up to a dizzying high of over $480 last week. The stock crashed back down to earth on Tuesday, along with Bed Bath & Beyond, BlackBerry, and the price of silver. The wild trend raised questions about potential risks to the financial services industry and prompted professional market watchers to call for a regulatory crackdown. Last week, the SEC warned that, quote, extreme stock price volatility could expose investors to rapid and severe losses and undermine market confidence. According to a document seen by Reuters, Yellen consulted with ethics lawyers before calling a meeting with regulators and received clearance to do so. Reuters reported earlier this week that Yellen has received hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees from hedge fund Citadel, one of the key players in the GameStop saga. An ethics agreement requires Yellen to seek authorization before getting involved in matters related to Citadel, as well as major banks like Citigroup and Barclays.
A Treasury official says the meeting will be held this week, maybe as early as Thursday. And one Reddit trader involved in the GameStop rally lost $13 million in just one day. Now he's posting his losses on Reddit's Wall Street Bets forum. Keith Gill has 50,000 shares in GameStop and 500 call options. GameStop's stock price dropped 60% Tuesday. That's after Gill already lost $5.2 million on Monday. Even with the losses, Gill says he made $7.6 million in gains. The New York Post says Gill doesn't appear to have sold any shares or options since the stock dropped this week. What a saga. And stocks closed mixed on Wednesday. The Dow rose 36 points or 0.12%. S&P 500 gained 4 points or 0.1%. The Nasdaq lost 2 points or 0.02%. When they lose, they don't really lose much. The CBOE Volatility Index eased and Treasury yields rose. Both oil and gold also gained. U.S. private payrolls rebounded more than expected in January, so says the ADP employment report anyway. It says the private sector added 174,000 jobs last month. That's more than triple what economists had forecast. It's a sharp rebound from the nearly 80,000 job cuts in December. The services sector bounced back as the leisure and hospitality industry added 35,000 jobs. The easing of restrictions on businesses has offered hope of a faster job growth in the months ahead. The economy has recouped a little more than half of the 22 million jobs lost in March and April, but congressional report says employment won't fully recover until 2024. We'll get the full picture on Friday when the Labor Department releases its January jobs report. Economists expect an increase of about 50,000 jobs. And President Biden told House Democrats on Wednesday that the next virus relief bill must include around $1,400 direct payments. But he says he's willing to compromise on the income requirements. Here's the details.
President Biden says he wants the next relief bill to include $1,400 direct payments to Americans. It would be part of his nearly $2 trillion relief package. Some Republicans are against it due to the overall price tag and some specific provisions. A group of 10 Republicans recently put forward their own counterproposal, which would contain $1,000 stimulus checks. Biden told House Democrats that the Republican proposal was not in the cards, and he asked them to go big with the aid package. Although Biden insisted on $1,400 checks, he did say he's open to tightening income restrictions. That would mean fewer Americans get the checks. His current plan is for the stimulus checks to go to Americans earning $75,000 or less. The Republican proposal offers $1,000 checks to Americans earning less than $40,000. Both proposals would give smaller checks to people earning more money up to a certain point. Biden didn't specify how much he would be willing to compromise on the income qualifications.
And new analysis says 73% of the proposed $1,400 stimulus checks would just go into people's savings accounts. Only 27% would turn into more consumption. The research was done by Penn Wharton Budget Model at Wednesday's White House briefing. A reporter asked the press secretary about the study. She says Biden's economic team doesn't think the model is accurate. And still to come this evening, a Chinese state-run newspaper snubs the country's most famous entrepreneur. It published a list of Chinese business leaders, but Jack Ma was nowhere to be found. And House Republicans want to delay the confirmation of President Biden's pick for Commerce Secretary. They're concerned she'll take Huawei off the trade blacklist. More on that when we return.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too big to fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of The Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
China's most famous entrepreneur, Jack Ma, has been left off the state media list of business leaders. The snub might just show how much he's fallen out of favor with Beijing. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
Jack Ma faces a new snub in China. The Alibaba founder has been left out of a state media list of entrepreneurial leaders. China's best-known businessman wasn't even mentioned in the front-page article published by the Shanghai Securities News. The piece celebrated people who, it said, abided by market rules. Mentioned were names like Huawei's Ren Zhengfei, Xiaomi's Lei Jun, and BYD's Wang Chuanfu. The story was published the same day Alibaba released its quarterly earnings. It didn't respond to a request for comment. The snub also comes as Ma's fintech company Ant Group reached a restructuring deal with the Chinese regulators. Bloomberg reports the business will be turned into a financial holding company. This could be a major step forward, easing his regulation woes. Bloomberg says, according to people close to the matter, the plan calls for putting all of Ant's businesses into the financial holding company. That includes its technology offerings in areas like blockchain and food delivery. Bloomberg reports that Ant is still exploring opportunities to revive its stock market listing. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
House Republicans want to delay confirmation of President Biden's commerce pick. It's until she commits to keeping Huawei on the trade blacklist. Here's the details.
Nearly 24 House Republicans say Huawei poses a national security threat, and they're concerned that President Biden's commerce pick, Gina Raimondo, will take Huawei off the trade blacklist. Although Raimondo vowed to protect U.S. telecom networks last week during her confirmation hearing, she wouldn't commit to keeping Huawei on the blacklist. Now the House Republicans want the Senate to halt her confirmation. Republican Steve Womack tweeted, "Huawei is inextricably tied to the CCP and poses a national security threat. It's beyond concerning that Governor Raimondo and the administration have failed to commit to keeping the company on the Commerce's entity list. Her confirmation should be halted until we have a concrete stance." Republican John Joyce writes, "The Senate should hold on Governor Raimondo's confirmation until the Biden administration clarifies its intentions for Huawei and the Chinese Communist Party." They say the Department of Commerce has authority over export controls, and leaders there need to understand the CCP and how it uses technology for surveillance. By law, Chinese companies have to cooperate with Chinese intelligence agencies if asked. Huawei denies the allegations. Former President Trump put Huawei on a trade blacklist in 2019, and he tried to convince U.S. allies to exclude it from their 5G networks. The Republicans say this is a bipartisan issue, and they're calling on members on both sides of the aisle to support their effort.
Still to come. A cheesemaker in England says he's so vexed with Brexit's trade hurdles that he's threatening to move some of his operations to France. Find out more when we return.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy?
Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3.
Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals,
especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new!
If you've been to New York City recently, you've probably seen them. Outdoor dining huts. The city has issued special allowances so restaurants can just install them in front of their establishments. So NTD's Arian Pastor asked restaurant owners about their use after indoor dining will be allowed again.
In September, Mayor Bill de Blasio said the structures will be allowed to stay year-round. He didn't specify if that allowance will be permanent or only for 2021. According to one restaurant manager, the allowance only applies until the end of this year. Establishments around the city invested a lot of money in the structures.
With everything that we have out there, along with our heaters, it's well over 20 grand. Absolutely. A lot of people want outdoor dining and it's very hard to find in the city, so we may as well take advantage of it while we can.
New Yorkers agreed, saying that especially in summer they would love to make use of outdoor dining in the city.
I always like to sit outside if it's an option, even pre-pandemic.
In the summer, outdoors is fine.
Outside,
like here.
because there's more fresh air.
Yeah.
I prefer to eat in outdoor patios. Yes. So outdoors.
A restaurant employee we talked to said if they're allowed to keep the structure, they will do so, but he doesn't think that will be the case.
It brings more customers, for sure. So they could be able to sit down. You know, here is a small area, no seating. The only seating we have is outside. So if they allow to keep it, we will keep it. But it's hard to see that in the long run. Once it start being traffic and things like that, I believe they will change a law to take it out.
We asked New York's press office whether the structures will be allowed permanently. They didn't get back to us before broadcast time. New Yorkers aren't bothered by the structures and would love to see them stay. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
A traditional British cheesemaker is furious. It's even considering moving its operations to a cheese rival across the English Channel, France.
This is the Cheshire Cheese Company in rural northern England. It used to sell its traditional wax-coated cheeses directly to European customers. But costly red tape since Brexit has closed down that trade completely, the company says, pushing it to consider investing in a new hub in France. London and Brussels agreed a last-minute trade deal last December, which averted border tariffs. But many companies, particularly smaller ones, have warned that the deal has thrown up new obstacles to trade that are killing business. Managing Director Simon Spurrell.
We have no access any longer to the 446 million consumer market in the EU. However, there is no reciprocal arrangement in place at the moment, so the whole of the EU is free to ship into the UK with their cheese products, meat products, etc. and animal produce, whilst we can't.
Last year the firm sold £180,000, or nearly $250,000, worth of truckles to EU buyers. That's the name for a type of cheese shaped like a barrel. And Spurrell used to sell gift boxes worth £25 to EU customers through his online shop. But now every export needs a health certificate signed off by a vet, regardless of its size, at £180 a pop. The company, which had predicted a 40% rise in sales this year, has now halted plans for a new distribution centre in northern England and might instead set one up in France.
We're actually in a situation now where we have to think about what are our definitive options for continuing the EU or abandoning the EU. One of the options ourselves and many other businesses have been looking at is actually having a distribution centre within the EU, because we can ship wholesale into the EU. It is difficult, very, very difficult, but it is possible.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Britain would be free to trade globally once it had cast off Europe's shackles, and has dismissed such bureaucratic snags as teething problems.
That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News though. They start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.